Good evening, bonsoir. Thank you for joining us this evening for the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council's 2022 Impact Awards. My name is Ursula Goebel. I'm SSHRC's Vice President, Stakeholder Engagement and Advancement of Society, and I'm delighted to be your host for this evening's program. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are gathered on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe peoples. As this event is being live streamed, we have participants in various locations, and I would like to acknowledge from coast to coast to coast the ancestral unceded territories of all First Nations peoples, Métis and Inuit, that call this land home. Chaque année, les prix
Every year, the Impact Awards highlight the exceptional accomplishments in research in human sciences.
This ceremony, I'm honored to welcome Elder Stephanie Peltier, First Nations Ojibwe from the unceded Wakwamikong territory, and Lee Cote of the Kitigan-Zibi Anishinaabe First Nation, to start our gathering in a good way with an opening blessing. Elder Peltier and Lee.
Kwe kakina ani bojo tanse sego. Nuijawa kwe indigenicas, wawashkeshin do dem, nijo mede kwendang we kwem kong donjaba. Kina aguea migwech age bijai knangwa. Misa manda ake inishnabek algonquin, ebitamowat, minwa kina gani nijik, the ancestors, Minadendam ma danik eko kikendagot manda bemadzwin. Mana mampi nikeya a king, the earth, age abe dinezwak. Minwa age wika age migweze nawa. Wawindama gwening binish nangwa. Wewene mino ganondeda, mino gino wabdeda. Minach toda mino bemadzuing mampi nangwa. Good evening and welcome to the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada Annual Awards Ceremony. I thank you for inviting us here this evening to provide the Algonquin Land Acknowledgement and Blessing. We welcome you to the territory and we acknowledge your ancestors. Tonight is a very special night for the recipients and their work. It is meant to be that we are gathered here at this location as long ago our people gathered here where the rivers met, where all our nations gathered. We wish you all a good evening and congratulations to the recipients. Miigwech.
Thank you for your blessing, Elder Peltier. Comme j'ai dit, chaque année, les prix
As I said, every year the Impact Awards highlight the accomplishments, exceptional accomplishments in research into human sciences. It celebrates excellence of ideas, research and collaboration of researchers from everywhere in the country whose work is in varied communities and sectors and also impacts our entire society. After 2 years without having been able to celebrate the Impact Awards in person, what a pleasure to gather to honor the recipients from the Le Breton Gallery in the Canadian War Museum. I am pleased to introduce to you Dean Oliver, Vice President and General Director of the Canadian War Museum, who also presided the jury of the Impact Awards for 2022.
Say a few words.
Thank you very much, Ursula. Parliamentary Secretary Fillmore, Dr. Hewitt, Elder Peltier, Leo Cote, and all of you who have joined us here this evening.
It is a great honor for us to host this prestigious award ceremony, as well as to welcome our neighbors and friends from the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada. It is also our pleasure to honor the winners of these awards this evening.
My colleagues and I believe it is important to acknowledge where we are standing. The Canadian War Museum is located on the banks of the Ottawa River on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe. And acknowledging where we are and working closely with Indigenous communities and partners across Canada is vitally important to this museum as we all move forward in a spirit of reconciliation and respect. As Ursula mentioned, I had the really great honor this year of having chaired the Impact Awards jury, having previously served 3 years as a member. It is an education, but one of the most pleasant and rewarding sort. For those of you who have never had a similar privilege, but who might yet be invited, when the opportunity comes, do say yes. You won't regret it. The strength of mind and character of my fellow jurors was really quite simply overwhelming, and the perspectives they brought to each and every proposal resulted in some of the most intensive, educational, and enlightening discussions I've ever had the privilege of having. The fabulous diversity of the proposals and of the individual candidates was equally impressive. No, it was more than impressive, it was quite humbling. Though many things press against us these days, from pandemic and international war to social uncertainty and post-secondary enrollment concerns, the ecosystem of knowledge, exploration, creation, dissemination remains thriving. Challenging, yes, disappointing at times, inequitable, sadly, but rich, inspirational, and thriving too. My colleagues here and at the Canadian Museum of History both inhabit and contribute to this ecosystem. And I would pause to point out that my colleague and new colleague, Jonathan Dewar, the Director General and Vice President of the Canadian Museum of History, is here with us this evening. Most of us, including Jonathan and myself, perhaps most of you, have benefited directly from SSHRC support. Many others now and in the past have participated in SSHRC-funded consortia. We don't refuse requests to serve, and we're delighted to work with academic and community and government and private sector colleagues in the pursuit of the knowledge on so many fronts, often where possible, leading these efforts from both of our museums. Par exemple, la série de recherche en histoire militaire.
For example, the museum's military history research series published by the University of British Columbia Press already has 59 peer-reviewed volumes, and the flagship multidisciplinary Mercury series, now published by the University of Ottawa Press, has published even more since the early 1970s. The War Museum is indeed a place of memory, of remembrance and exploration, as we see every time in November, a very busy month for us. But it is also a place of scholarship, discovery, gathering, and reflection. Our work, from exhibitions to restorations, websites, publications, and media exposure, is rooted in a deep respect for knowledge and our close connection to it in all its forms. Knowledge is also part of our mandate and at the heart of our mission.
The event tonight and the presence here of so many thought leaders, so many advocates, so many knowledge keepers is deeply gratifying. Our debt to you, Canadians' debt to you, is deep and steadily accruing. What are we without the questions that your research has asked? And what will we become without the answers that those questions reveal? Ursula, chers amis, lauréats et lauréates.
Dear friends, award winners, members of the jury, and guests, welcome to the Canadian War Museum.
Fellow jurors and all guests who've chosen to be with us tonight, welcome to the Canadian War Museum. Good evening.
Merci, Dean. Et
Thank you,
maintenant,
Dean. And now it is with great pleasure that I welcome on the stage the president of CRSH or SSHRC, Ted Hewitt, who's going to talk to us about human sciences contribution to our society and how research supports and promotes research in this discipline.
Thank you, Ursula. Merci. Bonsoir. I'm really
Thank you. Good evening.
to be here with you this evening. And Dean, I really want to acknowledge our deepest gratitude to you and to the members of the jury for the Impact Awards for your dedicated work in selecting this year's award winners, and what winners they are, as we're going to see. So un grand merci, collègue. I want to give a special thanks to our distinguished guests, Elder Pelche, Andy Fillmore, who you'll hear from in a bit. We have members of our SSHRC Council here this evening, and we have our former president, Dr. Chad Gatfield, here with us. So thank you for all the work that you've done over the years. All of the winners we welcome as well, who've made the trip to Ottawa with their guests here this evening. So for nearly 45 years now, if you can believe this, SSHRC has championed and invested in outstanding talent and research in social sciences and humanities on topics vital to Canadian society: food security to immigration, language preservation, economic prosperity, behavioral change. Social sciences and humanities harness human insights so that we can better understand the challenges and the opportunities we face today and those we'll face in the future. This research has improved understanding and decision-making in communities, businesses, and governments across the country who use this knowledge to improve the lives of Canadians and people worldwide. Nous sommes fiers de faire partie d'une communauté.
We are proud of being part of a community that continues to contribute to the evolution of Canadian research and to social cohesion. Guided by Momentum, its strategic plan 2020 to 2025, we are well positioned to reinforce the leadership of Canada in the field of research and human sciences, most particularly by contributing to progress in matters of equity, diversity, and inclusion, by reinforcing the Indigenous research capacities, and by fostering interdisciplinary collaboration at the international level. To contribute to the improvement of skills in research in Canada, we are preparing students for success by proposing more opportunities and trainings at the beginning of their careers, and by allowing them to deepen their skills in communications and mobilization of knowledge. We support research work in Canada by fostering inclusion of the scientific community, by reinforcing the ecosystems, research ecosystems and post-secondary establishments, and by promoting open science and the guardianship and stewardship of research data. Furthermore, we provide innovative solutions to meet challenges and to open up possibilities at the global level, thanks to targeted support for the sharing of research and the demonstration of its usefulness.
Through the annual Impact Awards, it's our great pleasure as Canada's Social Sciences and Humanities Research Funding Agency to recognize the highest achievements by outstanding scholars funded partially or completely by SSHRC. This year's winners are clearly outstanding in their field. Their ideas and their research not only provide evidence for sound policy making, but have profound impact on the intellectual, cultural, social, and economic well-being of Canadians. Such impacts, I know, resonate with one of our very special guests joining us this evening, Mr. Andy Fillmore, and a great friend of SSHRC, Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Innovation, Science, and Industry. Andy has been just a solid champion of social sciences and humanities research, and we are so grateful for the significant investments that his government has made in these disciplines over many years. So Andy, I'm just so pleased to invite you to the stage to say a few words. Andy, welcome.
Well, it's a big night, isn't it? It's a big night for a handful of people in the room and a big night for the rest of us as well. Thank you, Ted, for that kind introduction, and good evening, everyone. I'm Andy Fillmore. I'm the Member of Parliament for Halifax, a proud city of researchers, and the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry, the department which is the home department of the Tri-Council, including SSHRC. So it's really a profound pleasure for me to be here with you as well. Dr. Oliver, I've lost you in the crowd, but thank you very much for hosting us. Thank you for hosting us so graciously at the War Museum this evening. It's wonderful to be back. I'm a regular visitor at the annual Battle of the Atlantic dinner, which we haven't had since the pandemic. So I hope to see you again soon in that way. And thanks also for your work on the selection committee. Difficult choices, I know. Miigwech, Elder Stephanie, for your warm welcome and starting us in a good way with your blessing as we begin our evening on the traditional and unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. And I have to also say a big nod of thanks to Ted Hewitt, the president of SSHRC, and the entire SSHRC team. They are putting together a seamless evening, which is just the endpoint of a seamless process. So tremendous thanks to all of you. If there are any of my colleagues in the House of Commons or in the Parliament of Canada in the room, I welcome you as well. I know that there were many colleagues who are from the ridings where some of our winners are from, and they're hoping to make it here tonight. But there is an unexpected debate in the House this evening that is keeping many people away. In fact, when I leave here from the stage, I'll have to leave, but I want you to know it's going to debate research funding. So I hope you'll forgive me if I do go and do that important work. Ce soir, nous célébrons un groupe de personnes
Tonight we'll be celebrating a group of exceptional people. Each year, the Impact Prizes are given to the best researchers in Canada in the domain of human sciences.
I had the honor of meeting with them and chatting with them earlier today about their extraordinary work. And I'm very happy to say, and I was warmed to observe, a standing ovation that they received in the House of Commons as they watched from the gallery. So I was very happy to see that expression of respect and support for the work that you're doing. They represent years of hard work, dedicated research, and unflagging effort, much of which happens quietly and often without fanfare. So this is an important night. This evening is very important. So I think we can agree that we have never needed social sciences and humanities more than we do right now. Humans and their interrelationships may well be the most complex and unknowable of all subjects. In a polarized world, social sciences and humanities point us toward greater understanding. They uncover previously hidden societal structures. They shed light on the darkest corners of human history, and they hold the key to unlocking some of the greatest mysteries of humanity. The government understands the vital role that science and research play in the economic and social prosperity of all Canadians. It propels us toward important technological and societal advancements, and it's at the heart of our government's decision-making. And this is why we're funding science and research and the people who power it at historical levels, more than $14 billion since 2016. Tonight, we celebrate a few of these talented people. These recipients are bright stars in the firmament of Canada's research world. Together, they make up a constellation of thought leaders who challenge us to think bigger and more deeply. Their collective efforts illuminate Canada on the world stage. There are researchers who have explored subjects as diverse as inequalities affecting First Nations children, youth, and families, the voting behavior that underpins our democracy, and social injustices and fundamental rights, and so much more. Their insights are rooted in empirical evidence and help us to understand and improve the world around us. They work to point us to potential solutions for ingrained problems, from alleviating poverty and unemployment to improving disaster response. These are outstanding leaders whose dedication and originality of thought embody the very best of social sciences and humanities research. Some are emerging leaders, while others are well-established champions. I want to say congratulations and gratitude are owed to these researchers, as well as to all of the esteemed research community in Canada in the humanities and social sciences sector. Merci de votre important travail qui nous aide.
Thank you for your important work that helps us to better understand our society and where we live. Miigwech, good evening, and congratulations.
Thanks, Andy, and good luck tonight. We've actually heard today from a number of parliamentarians, and I received a text as well from a friend to all of us, the chair of the Standing Committee on Science and Research, Dr. Kirsty Duncan, who had wanted me to convey how proud she was of all the Impact Award winners tonight. So I think that's just fantastic in terms of the recognition that you are receiving. Now, it's time, it's the moment to present these awards, and I know you've been waiting and waiting and waiting. We are going to start with the Insight Award, which is presented to an individual or team whose project has made significant contributions to the knowledge and understanding of people, societies, and the world. So it is with great pleasure that I welcome to the stage Jan Grabowski to receive this honor.
Awarded to Jan Grabowski from the University of Ottawa for his 30-year career dedicated to the study of the Holocaust in Poland, and in particular, to the study of the fate of Jewish peoples following the liquidations of urban ghettos, which began in 1942. An accomplished award-winning author for works such as Betrayal and Murder in German-occupied Poland, Jan teaches his students to better understand the past, so that we can all better understand the world today. His work, a result of SSHRC funding, is considered a milestone in Holocaust studies. Jan a engagé et formé ses étudiantes et étudiants de premier
He trains his students who have improved their skills in terms of research in order to be able to collaborate in this very important work. He has brought forward research projects together with researchers in Europe and Israel. This led to the publication of essential works, essential to the understanding of this very important part of history.
Congratulating our 2022 Impact Award winner, Jan Grabowski.
Merci beaucoup. Je suis enchanté. Je suis plein de gratitude.
Thank you so much. I'm enchanted. I'm full of gratitude. In fact, I am so happy. I must say that I arrived in Canada 34 years ago. I never would have thought that there would be such a thing in my future.
For this award, I'm humbled. And I will share with you a few words. Over the last 3 decades, rather unexpectedly, the Holocaust has become a universal benchmark of evil, a point of reference for people, institutions, and the states. Surprisingly, the further we are removed in time from the event itself, the more central it becomes to our perceptions of the past. Ambassadors are recalled, international relations become strained, and memorial wars surrounding the Holocaust are more and more frequent. Not only in Europe, where the Jewish catastrophe took place, but even here in our peaceful dominion. The lessons of the Holocaust are many, and the research into this tragic history is of fundamental importance, not only to the moral, but also to the political condition of our society. Raoul Hilberg, one of the foremost scholars of the Holocaust, divided the human scenery of Jewish tragedy into 3 distinct categories. He wrote about perpetrators, victims, and bystanders. While the 2 first terms were seemingly straightforward, the third one, the bystanders, was definitely not. Ill-defined and oblique, it held little explanatory value. Bystanding implied a degree of aloofness, distance, and impartiality, which in the context of the Holocaust was difficult, if not impossible, to achieve. It was the attitude of these bystanders, people of various nationalities, religions, and ethnicities, toward the ongoing annihilation of the European Jews, which informed my research and propelled me on my intellectual journey. Poland, the epicenter of the Holocaust, a place where 5 out of 6 million Jews have been put to death, where all extermination camps have been located, where the exposure to terror and proximity to the machinery of death was palpable, has become my historical lab. Using the methodological tools of microhistory, I followed trajectories of thousands of people, those who led a desperate struggle for survival, those who, motivated by orders, greed, religion, or ideology, I hunted them down, those who helped or tried to help, as well as all those who eluded the existing categories. I studied people in flux, people who saved one day and killed the other. In the process, I became aware of the scale of local complicity, local involvement in the German genocidal plan. A study of the Holocaust seen through the microhistorical lens shows how individuals, groups, and societies act under extreme stress. It shows how our moral choices are shaped, warped, and determined by the oblique sphere of prejudice, fear, and need for conformity. My research and publications were met with hostility by the militant and nationalistic Polish state. Unlike the deniers of yesteryear, the nationalists and populists today do not deny the factuality of the Holocaust. They simply claim that their nation, their people, or their group had nothing to do with this event. To defend historical myths based largely on bad-willing ignorance, they use the powers of the state which are at their disposal. They introduce laws to muzzle historians, and they make a great effort to rewrite history, in this case, to transform the history of one of the greatest tragedies in human history into an optimistic story of righteous Gentiles saving their Jewish neighbors at the period of need. An attack on history, on memory, an attempt to enforce state-approved historical narrative, to muzzle and to frighten historians, is usually a harbinger of more pernicious attacks on democracy, on the very tenets of our political system. Attacks on history are usually a sign that freedom of speech, freedom of choice, and freedom of vote will soon find themselves threatened and under pressure. An old adage says that those who do not learn from the past are forced to repeat its mistakes. If the study of history of the Holocaust can not only preserve the memory of 6 million dead innocent people, but at the same time will help to defend the system which allows us to enjoy the basic rights and freedoms which we often take for granted, then that's a life well spent. Finally, I would like to thank people without whom I would not be here today. First, I want to mention my father, a Holocaust survivor, who experienced the horrors of life in the ghetto and who later confronted death on a daily basis while in hiding. Despite having wandered through 9 circles of hell, and despite the horrors which were visited upon him, he managed to preserve trust in humanity. He taught me to look at evil as a passing phenomenon, not an immutable part of our nature. I want to thank my mother, whose wise advice based on wartime memories and enormous erudition continues to be of fundamental value to me today. My gratitude goes to my friends, les collègues à l'Université d'Ottawa, les savants de l'Holocauste partout au Canada et ailleurs au monde.
And everywhere in Canada and elsewhere in the world.
Humanities Research Council of Canada, without whose generous financial support, I would have been unable to conduct my research. Finally, I would like to thank all independent Polish scholars, teachers, and educators engaged in the fight against Holocaust distortion, who today face intimidation and loss of employment at the hands of the hostile state. Merci beaucoup. Thank you.
Congratulations, Jan, and thank you for those words. Our next award, the Partnership Award, recognizes a formal partnership through mutual cooperation, shared intellectual leadership and resources, which has demonstrated impacts and influences within or beyond the social sciences and humanities research communities. Veuillez accueillir sur scène la lauréate du prix partenariat.
Please welcome Fanny Lafontaine, as well as the members of her team, Fanny and colleagues.
Avocate et professeure à l'Université Laval, Fanny Lafontaine est membre de l'Institut québécois des hautes études internationales et co-directrice de la clinique de droit international pénal et humanitaire. Fanny a dirigé le partenariat canadien pour la justice internationale qui relie des chercheurs universitaires et des ONG partenaires de partout au Canada pour étudier les différentes voies que les victimes de crimes internationaux peuvent emprunter au Canada, dans d'autres États et devant des institutions internationales afin d'obtenir la justice. Closer to home, Fanny proudly serves as an independent civilian observer on the inquiry into allegations of criminal acts committed by police against First Nations as appointed by the government of Quebec. Please join us again in congratulating our 2022 Partnership Award winner, Fanny Lafontaine et son équipe. Come closer. Come closer. Oui. Good evening. Bonsoir. C'est très
Good
particulier.
evening. It's very special to be the person nominated in a partnership award. I have a wonderful team with me with whom we've been working for 7 years to reinforce justice for victims of international crimes. I will introduce them. It's particular that we're at the War Museum. If we took the time to look around us, I don't know if some of you saw La Guerre des Turcs, but war is not a reason to hurt each other. And that's the objective of our partnership. War has rules, and crimes against civilians, massacres are prohibited. And Jan, thank you for your incredible contribution to the research on the Holocaust. Of course, since the Second World War, there were the Nuremberg trials, and we said never again to the genocide and human rights abuses, but there has to be accountability. And since then, there have been massive efforts done at the international level to hold responsible people who commit atrocities, so genocides, crimes against humanity, and war crimes. And that is our partnership. It's 25 researchers and civilians in 12 partner organizations, 9 universities, and 3 non-government agencies from Victoria, BC to Halifax, Nova Scotia. We decided to bring together our efforts so that we could accompany victims in their search for justice. So there are many of us on the stage with me. I'm so pleased. I tried to convince Ted to invite all 25 researchers, and he said that public money was for research and not to visit museums in Ottawa. So I have with me, I'm very pleased that you are here with me, Penelope Simons from the University of Ottawa, who's on our executive committee for the partnership. She works on accountability of businesses and justice for women. So justice when it comes to gender equality. Her contribution to the partnership was exceptional. I thank you for being here, Penelope. Thank you so much. Pascal Paradis, and he left a big lawyers firm to become a founder and director of Lawyers Without Borders, which is our non-government agency within the partnership. They work in around 10 countries right now. They started with 2 lawyers, and now they've hired hundreds of students to work on projects. Pascal Paradis is celebrating his year, the 20th anniversary of Lawyers Without Borders, and they're an exceptional partner of the Canadian Partnership for International Justice. Thank you, Pascal, for your presence. I'll quickly say hi to 2 other co-nominees who are not here. Joanna Harrington from University of Alberta, who's not with us, but who's with us in spirit. Valerie Westphal from Western as well. And quickly, Catherine Savard and Eric Sullivan, who are here. Eric Sullivan and Catherine. Eric Sullivan is a coordinator of the partnership, Without him, there would not be a partnership. There would not be any activities. He's a fantastic partner. He was accompanied by Catherine for several years, and I thank them from the bottom of my heart for everything they've done. We worked on questions of justice, of documentation, of violations of human rights in Mali, in Myanmar, against Uyghurs in China. We worked on numerous files like this. To have access to justice for victims is difficult. This partnership tried to bring together the efforts of the university academics and non-government agencies, and the work has just started. Canada was always a leader when it comes to international justice, and we must continue to be so. And that is what we are committing to doing. We have worked quite a bit on colonial violence, which we qualified as a genocide here in Canada against Indigenous people. There's a lot of work to be done, some recognition. So the massive violation of the environment as an international crime. So the work is just beginning. I invite all students in Canada to join forces.
Numerous people here in Canada working towards international justice. We are so grateful for everyone's commitment. I am so grateful for all of our team here in Canada, and thank you to SSHRC. This support has been super precious for us, but for victims of international crimes here and abroad. So miigwech, thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Merci Fanny et collègues, très inspirant.
Thank you, Fanny and colleagues, very inspiring.
We are now moving on. Nous sommes maintenant rendus à la remise du prix Talent.
We are now at the Talent Award, which talks about the exceptional accomplishments of a person who has a doctorate bursary or a postdoctoral bursary. Please welcome Samra Sevi.
Nominated by Western University, Samra Sevi is a Banting postdoctoral fellow at Columbia University. Her research addresses voting behavior, political representation, public opinion, legislative policies, partisanship, and political methodology. I'm sure it was quite an observation being in the house today from the gallery. Grâce au soutien financier du
Thanks
CRSH,
to the financial support of the council, she has gathered the observations on candidates of all elections, federal elections in Canada, since the creation of the Confederation in an original data bank that is the most comprehensive of its sort, which was recognized globally.
For sharing best practices, working collaboratively, and her focus on mentorship are core aspects of her academic work and key characteristics of her winning the 2022 Talent Award. Please join us in congratulating our 2022 Talent Award winner, Samra Sevi.
Thank you. I'm both thrilled and very humbled to receive the Talent Award. I still have a very hard time believing that a person like me who had to relearn how to talk and walk at the age of 5 in a new country is awarded one of SSHRC's most prestigious honors. My SSHRC-funded work examines who runs and is elected for political office in Canada. This work is important for understanding how well the Canadian legislator captures the diversity of the population it represents and where improvements can be made. Mine is a story of perseverance. Rarely have I received anything on my first try. I'm thankful for the Université de Montréal for first nominating me to Talent as a doctoral student. That year, I was a finalist and I was deeply touched. I'm also thankful and grateful to the University of Western Ontario for renominating me this year. I would not be standing here today if it was not for their support. I feel very lucky to have a community of scholars who have mentored and supported me on my academic journey. As a first generation scholar and student, doing a PhD had never occurred to me as a possibility or to be within reach. So it's thanks to members of the academic community and mentors that I had who took a chance on me that I've come as far as I have. And so I'd like to acknowledge a few by name. My advisors, Andre Blay, Ruth Dassanville, and Donald Green. I would also like to thank James Druckman, Christopher Cochran, Laura Stevenson, Amanda Bittner, and Peter Lowen. I hope my story inspires other young immigrants and first gens. If I got here, so can they. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Congratulations, Semra. Now, the Connection Award honors an outstanding initiative facilitating the exchange of research knowledge within or beyond the social sciences and humanities community to generate intellectual, cultural, social, or economic impacts. So it's with great pleasure that I welcome Jordan Stanger-Ross to receive this honor. Jordan, come on up.
He wants you to come up. Come on up. Jordan Stanger-Ross from the University of Victoria wins this award for leading teachings and research with a focus on immigration, race, and inequality in 20th century North America. His work tells the story of disposition of Japanese Canadians during the 1940s. Dans le cadre d'une collaboration interdisciplinaire,
Within an interdisciplinary collaboration financed by the Council, Landscapes of Injustice, Jordan reveals an unprecedented analysis of the capture and sale of houses, of farms, of businesses, and of goods of Canadians of Japanese origin, including family heirlooms. He revealed a new story of the period of Japanese internment in Canada.
With a shared commitment to anti-racism, connections with other academics, and solidified partnerships that continue to affirm the importance of their collective work. Please join us in congratulating again our 2022 Connection Award winner, Jordan Stanger-Ross.
Thank you so much. It's been a really wonderful day, and it's wonderful to hear the remarks of the other winners as well, and to meet them. Just a wonderful and impressive group. It was a little over 10 years ago that I wandered for the first time into the Nikkei National Museum in Burnaby, just outside of Vancouver. And I was there to study or to learn a bit about the experience of one individual, a man named Kishizo Kimura, who had participated in committees that oversaw the dispossession of Japanese Canadians of his own community. And they had records there at the Nikkei National Museum, and I was working on my own, intending to write an article on the experiences and the perspectives of this man. And there at the archives, they had material, but they also had this remarkable archivist, Linda Kuwamoto-Reed, who started bringing me all kinds of things that I hadn't asked for, teaching me things about the dispossession that I hadn't considered, and generally showing a great deal of interest and enthusiasm for the work I was doing, something I wasn't particularly accustomed to at the time. So sort of a novel experience. That was the first conversation with Linda of many in which I came to understand the depth of generosity and curiosity within the community about this topic, the extent to which questions I had about the dispossession of the property of Japanese Canadians, something that was unique to Canada. We were talking about this earlier today. That didn't happen in the United States, that all the property of Japanese Americans was seized and sold without their permission. And the Japanese Canadian community had still questions about this and encouraged my questions. I had vaguely a sense that SSHRC had these grants that encouraged academics or enabled academics, I guess, to give something back to a small museum like that that could support our work. And so in conversation with Linda and the rest of the folks at the museum there, we cooked up this plan to maybe apply for a grant, and with encouragement of others, and those conversations expanded out and out, really something quite astounding happened. I'm here representing a team as well, and we received a partnership grant. A couple of members of that team are here today. Among the nominated people, representatives of a much larger team of some 70 people and 17 institutions, were two phenomenal researchers. Among the nominees, there are other phenomenal researchers, but one of them is Caitlin Finley, who's now a graduate student, PhD student at Cornell, and Audrey Kobayashi, who couldn't be here tonight and sends her regrets. Wonderful researchers who explored facets of the dispossession that had never previously been considered in scholarship. I was also nominated along with Sherry Kajawara and Yasmin Railton, two astoundingly talented curators who curated our exhibition, Broken Promises, which is traveling across Canada until 2024 and still looking for an Ottawa venue, by the way. Also nominated along with me was Greg Miyanaga, a wonderful Governor General Award-winning elementary school teacher who was part of our team who developed elementary school resources. Holding it all together and often seeing the significance of our work before I did was Mike Abe, our project manager, who was indispensable to the project, including to the digital archive that we produced that has provided materials that convey the experiences of every Japanese Canadian family that was uprooted and dispossessed in the 1940s. I want to thank also the Community Council, some of whom I imagine are watching this live stream, who are indispensable, and the University of Victoria and SSHRC. And I'm just tremendously grateful and thankful to be here tonight.
Congratulations, Jordan and team. And finally, the moment that we've all been waiting for, the Gold Medal Award. This is SSHRC's highest research honor, awarded to an individual whose sustained leadership, dedication, and originality of thought inspires students and colleagues alike. Le récipiendaire, la médaille d'or du SSHRC, doit démontrer que la qualité et l'impact de sa recherche sont
They have to show that the quality and impact of the research is exceptional and that they always try to share the results of their work.
Gold medal recipient must have greatly enriched Canadian society and contributed to social, cultural, economic, and intellectual life in Canada and/or internationally. And who could possibly meet that bar? Tonight's award winner has done just that, and it is with great pleasure that I welcome Dr. Cindy Blackstock to receive the 2022 Gold Medal Award.
A member A member of the Gitxsan First Nations, Cindy Blackstock's career as a scholar, professor, and executive director of the First Nations Child and Family Caring Society of Canada has been dedicated to revealing inequities in the First Nations child welfare services, the overrepresentation of Indigenous children and youth in care, and the development of policies to address these issues. Cindy est une défenseur infatigable des droits de la personne et de...
Is an advocate for human rights and equality in members of First Nations. Her devotion has allowed to put into light how much discrimination, systemic discrimination how much discrimination they suffer.
Research for First Nations communities are particularly significant, and her outstanding record of awards and honors, media interviews, publications, and presentations, as well as implemented policy changes, are indicative of the enormous and tremendous impact she has had as a public scholar. Please join us again in congratulating our 2022 SSHRC Gold Medal winner, Cindy Blackstock.
It's a great honor to stand here on the unceded and unsurrendered Algonquin territory. Elder Elmer Corshane said that what the world really needs, and what First Nations, Métis, and Inuit children in particular need, is something called loving justice. And as I stand here in all these instruments of war, I'm starting to better understand what he meant by that. And part of what he meant by that is that we must commit ourselves to doing right versus being right. And that's where the research comes in. To understand the disadvantage, to pull back the layers of the onion to find the causes of injustice. And all too often they're obvious. But as some of my previous colleagues have said, we either can't see them or we become accustomed to them. In the case of First Nations children, it was that the government of Canada had chosen to ensure that they were not worth the money, that they would get less money for education, less money for healthcare, less money to stay with their families. And basics like water were considered to be reconciliation if you were lucky enough to be in a community that had those taps. All of this was happening in a country that was standing up internationally for human rights around the globe, that was populated by good people and good activists and great scholars. And yet somehow we couldn't see it. Or if we did, we didn't know how to deal with it. And that's the thing about loving justice, is that really when I'm starting to understand it more, it really is the power of spirit. It really is embracing that great scholarship with spirit, because that spirit is the ignition of loving justice. It makes things possible. It asks us and demands of us to ask more of ourselves. I saw a First Nations child who needed a standing frame because his was held together with duct tape. The government of Canada said he would have to wait 3 more years because, after all, he was lucky enough to get a wheelchair just a couple of years before. I knew in that moment 2 things. Number 1, somebody had to do something about this apartheid public service regime that was happening in the wake of residential schools. Number 2, it should not be me. Scared stiff of public speaking, wanting to blend in with the crowd, I was confident that there was somebody else out there, someone more competent, more capable, more able to take this on. And so I sat there, one of the bystanders. Until it finally occurred to me that I'd been waiting all this time and I saw others doing the same. And there's a great poem by Patrick Overton that has always been an inspiration to me. And it says, when you step across that place where light leads into darkness, there'll be something solid to stand on, or you will be taught to fly. And when you step across that place where light leads into darkness, you move from what is the accepted norm being that you do research, you don't implement it, or else you become an activist in academic circles. The accepted norm is that you really privilege Western knowledge because that gets you up in an institution, versus embracing the very fabric of who we are as First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and the brilliance of our own knowledge and traditions too. It was that ability to cross where light leads into darkness that I found company in all of the other people who had so courageously, so diligently been working at these inequalities for First Nations children for decades. Some of them I was lucky enough to work with and to know. Others, their spirits were there with us. They were there with us, and they asked us to never forget why we were there. An elder said it best. He said, never fall in love with your business card and never fall in love with your organization. Although I'm so grateful to McGill for all the space they've given to me in this way. They said, only fall in love with the children, because there may come a time when you have to sacrifice all those things for them. And that really is what loving justice is. And none of us really know if we'll ever succeed at that when we cross that place where light leads into darkness. Maybe we will fail, but at least we will have shown the children who are looking to us that we love them enough to try. And we set an example for others to fall in their wake. And sometimes that's the best you can do. And that's what those spirits had done for me. You know, when the children in the unmarked graves came, the elders in my circle tell me that they came because we were ready for them. They had something to say to all of us. And it was that we should not forget them again. And it was that we cannot live in a country that would tolerate ongoing injustices against First Nations, Métis, or Inuit children ever again. It is that we honor the survivors of residential schools by learning from the history of the past, not only to safeguard the rights of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, but to ensure the horrors of the internment of Japanese Canadians, or the anti-Semitism, or the rise of hate and intolerance around the world is defeated by loving justice at every turn. At every turn. And I want to also take this moment to just highlight the brilliance of the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit academics who are out there, and all the students who are striving to be in their company. They are authentic, they are hardworking, and what they have to share is a unique tradition of knowledge handed down through the centuries. Within it, we'll find knowledge about environmental sustainability. Within it, we'll find knowledge about peacekeeping. Within it, we'll find knowledge about loving justice. And within it, we'll find some of the greatest teachings about how to be a good human being. It seems to me that's something that the world needs a lot more of these days. SSHRC has made a lot of things possible. It's made possible the study of the inequalities of First Nations children. And more of that, it has brought together some of the great minds and company of those who are prepared to step across that place where light leads into darkness to create change for First Nations children. And I am so grateful for that. But I want to be especially grateful to the spirits, to all the children who came before this generation, to those who never came home, to children like Jordan River Anderson, who inspired Jordan's principle, to Shannon Kustachin, who inspired Shannon's dream, and to all of your children too. You see, because if we can end these inequalities in the Canadian government, voice on First Nations communities, and the injustices foisted on Métis and Inuit peoples, then within it we'll really find the true meaning of the country itself. Because you see, one of the things that many people still don't understand is that the word Canada is actually a First Nations word, and it means village. Let's make it a village that First Nations, Métis, and Inuit children can grow up and never have to recover from their childhoods. And a village where non-Indigenous kids never have to say they're sorry. That's what stepping across light into darkness means. That's what loving justice is. And I'm honored to play a small part in this collective role to achieve that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cindy, so much for all your work, but for all the lessons that we can all learn from and carry with us every day and to act upon what we learn. And to all of our winners, thank you for sharing your perspectives, your teachings, and your work with us. Congratulations to all our award recipients this evening and to all the finalists as well who were part of the nomination process. Let us all take a moment to reflect on what we heard today, to take some time to chat. And we hope for all of those who've joined us through the live stream that you've had the opportunity to also learn and to celebrate the extraordinary contributions of the social sciences and the humanities. Merci à vous, Monsieur Fillmore, d'avoir été de
Thank you,
notre...
Mr. Fillmore, for having been here today and for your continuous support for research on human sciences. And this is how our program comes to an end. Thank you to you all who followed the evening from home or the office.
Let us continue the celebration and connect further with each other for a reception this evening. Merci encore et bonne soirée. Thank you again and good night.
Thank you.